Ionian chords are chords that use the intervals from the Ionian scale. So that means all natural intervals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the key of G. That gives us a G major triad, a G major 7th chord, G major 9, G major 11. 11 is 4. It would have to be resolved if you put that note in there. Just like in the scale, that note's not going to stay in the chord. And also G major 6 or G major 13, same thing. And any combination of those. So it's very common to hear 6-9 chords where you put both of those in there. Just a quick demonstration of putting the 4 in a G major 7th. Sounds real tense, even if you resolve it. I'm not sure I've really heard that before. You do hear it all the time with the triads, however. So that 4 is common to put in. Again, it has to be resolved, but it's common to put in with the triads, not so much in the 7th chords. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is give you 5 positions of G major 7s. You already know one of these. Each one of these comes out of one of the modal positions. Same thing we did with the A minor chords. These are just the most common voicings. You can come up with your own. Doesn't matter to me, but these are good to learn if you don't know them. So we know this one. I'm going to give you another one that comes out of this position. All right, the intervals just go up in order, 1, 3, 5, and 7, so that's a good one. Coming out of the next position, this is probably the most common one. So that's 1, 5, 7, 3. Next one in the next position. It's actually identical to this. They go up in order. 1, 3, 5, 7. Why does it look different? Because we have that tuning thing on the second string. That happens with chords as well as scales. Next one. Let me go back to this. You can put an additional third on the top if you would like. Right? This B note on the first string is a third, so you can play 1, 3, 5, 7, or you can add the other third in. Up to you. Next position. And this one you can add in an extra fifth. What we have here is 1, 5, 7, 3. If you bar your first finger and include the D note on top, you can put in another 5. So that's up to you. Last one. So what we have here is 5, 1, 3, 7. 5, 1, 3, 7. Now with each of these, you can do that exercise. Remember that exercise we did several videos back. Take the major 7, flat the 7, it's a dominant. Now flat the 3, it's a minor 7. Flat the 5, it's a minor 7, flat 5. Flat the root, you're back to where you started. So this is not to play specifically within the key of G right now. It's to give you different voicings, ways to play the chords, and then later you can put them in the key of G, or any key you want. So with this, where we had 1, 5, 7, 3, well, if I flat the 7, that's now a G dominant. If I flat the 3, that's now a G minor 7. If I flat the 5, that's a G minor 7 flat 5. If I flat the root, I'm back to a major 7th chord, a half step below where I started, etc. So you can do that with all of these. It's a good way to learn new voicings of the chords. Okay, so the common intervals to add to the 1 chord, G major 7, are 9s and 6s, or 2s and 13s, however you want to talk about them. Now I'm just going to do this in one position. You can do this in all positions, and you should do it in all positions to get as many voicings of these things as you can. So if we take our first voicing that we learned, 1, 7, 3, and 5. When you're going to add intervals, what we're going to do is this. We're going to move intervals up to find the ones that we're looking for, and then we're going to do the opposite and look down or move intervals down to find the intervals that we're looking for. So the first thing I'll play is a G major 6 or G major 13, however you choose to call it. So here's the 5 going to 6. If I add that into the chord, I get that. Taking a 1 and going up to 2. Remember, you never want to move notes or add in notes on the bottom 2 strings usually, and you certainly wouldn't want to do this, where I take a 1 and move it up to 2. Now technically I have all the right notes in there for a G major 9, but that's a color note on the bottom. Never put colors on the bottom. Many times, in fact frequently, you can get away with and it sounds fine to put a tone center interval on the bottom. Never does it sound good to put a color interval on the bottom when it's on either the 6th and sometimes the 5th string. So that's not something you want to do. But the good news is any note that's on the 6th string is also on the same fret of the 1st string. So this 2 can also be found over here. Right, so I can play that G major 9 that way. So that's this 1 going up to 2. So G major 6, the 9 was here. I can put them together. Right, so you put 2 colors together, you're going to get so-called jazzier sounding chords, because in jazz they typically put more than 1 color in at a time. You can do this in any kind of music you want, as long as you deem that it fits the feel of the song. Alright, so what I did there was look up the neck from where I started to add these intervals in. So I can also add a 2 and a 6 moving down. So I'll start with my original. I can take this 7 and move it down to 6. So there's a G major 6. Okay, back to the original. I can take this 3 and move it down to 2. And I get G major 9. So G major 6, G major 9. I could put the 6 and the 9 together and get this. I could add the root on the top. All sorts of things I can do here, just in this one position. So you should do that throughout the positions that I just showed you with those G major 7s that I showed you. And work on, I would go through all of them and maybe on a weekly basis try to memorize 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or as many as you can. Don't try to memorize a lot in a short period of time. They tend to not stick. Okay. So these are all G major 7th chords with colors added in. Okay, so get as many of those as you can. You can also do the same chord scale exercise that we did in the Dorian chords, meaning you can take a G major 7, I'll take this one, where the intervals go up in order, 1, 3, 5, and 7, and you add each note in of the position, generally on the top 4 strings. So if I do that here, I'm not going to name all of these, but these would be intervals 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, right? Just going down the scale. Here's that suspended. Right. So you can hear that G on the bottom. Good exercise to do with all of them. Let's see. Here's something I didn't mention before. Chord tensions. Now, we have talked about the fact that when you solo, and even with these chords, like I mentioned a minute ago, the 4 has to be resolved if you include it. If you include the 4 in your solo, you have to resolve it to 3 or 5. If you play the 4 in a chord, it needs resolution also. Now, there are times when seeming major triads don't need this resolution, but that's a topic for another day because they're probably not actually coming from the Ionian scale. Probably coming from Mixolydian. However, so chord tensions, we know that you have to resolve that 4. There's another kind of tension that is used in chords all the time that doesn't require resolution, and you probably hear this more in jazz than anything else, but it's interesting to take note of. What you're going to find is that when you play half steps together in a chord, and it doesn't matter what intervals from a scale these half steps are, they could be 2 and flat 3, 7 and 1, 6 to flat 7, any 2 intervals that are a half step away. They are going to create more tension than any other intervals that you can play in a chord. So let's think about a major 7th chord for a second. You have the intervals 1, 3, 5, and 7 in a standard major 7th chord. Are there any half steps in that major 7th chord? Yes, there are. There is. There's one between the 1 and the 7. So there is inherent tension in this chord, but it's lessened to a degree. Now I'm going to show you a way in a minute to increase this tension. But in this particular voicing, because I have the 1 here and the 7 here, so 1 here, 7 here, it's separated by almost the entire scale. So when you separate the half steps by a bunch of notes or intervals in the scale, that inherent tension is lessened to the point where you almost don't even notice it. It just sounds like a pretty chord. Well, here's another G major 7 that I didn't show you yet. Some of you may know this, others may not. Those are the same exact 4 notes. Why does this have that tension to it? Now again, it's not tension that needs resolution. This is actually a very pretty sound as far as I'm concerned. Why does it sound tense when I play it here and not tense when I play it here? Because these half steps are on adjacent strings. They're literally within the same octave, a half step away. The 7 is here and the 1 is here. That's like playing this 7 and this 1, even though I'm doing them on different strings. That's where that tense sound comes from. But it's a very pretty voicing. All right, so that's something to remember. I'll demonstrate this with a Dorian chord as well. Let's see, A minor 9. That would give me a half step between a flatted third and the 2. So here's a standard A minor chord. If I take the 1 and go up to 2, I do have a half step within this chord, but again, it's separated. Here's the flat 3, and here's the 2 that I put in, separated by a bunch of intervals. If I voice the A minor chord so that the flat third is right next to the 2, I'm going to take this 1 and go up to 2 and put that in. And I'll use the open A string to keep that root on the bottom. There's that sound again, right? That tense kind of a sound, but again, it's very pretty, especially when you pick them like that. So it's another useful way to think about playing chords. If you like that sound, that's how you're going to get it. It's done with half steps, and those half steps played on adjacent strings. And again, it can be any intervals in the scale from any scale. Okay, last thing I want to go through here is an exercise that you can do with all chords. Now, I'm actually going to go back to the Dorian scale to demonstrate this. And what it is this. I'm starting on an A minor triad way up here. That gives me a lot of room to move down because I'm going to do this going down. You could also start from a lower fret and move up. You can do it either way. So this is a simple A minor triad. Now what's important here is that you see where the notes are in these positions that we've been talking about for so long. All I'm going to do is, now again, standard A minor chord. I'm going to take the top note and move it down to the next note in the scale. Now in Dorian, remember, there are no unresolved intervals. You can play all these notes with no worry about having to resolve anything. So all of these are usable Dorian chords. Now it turns out that's an A minor suspended. I'm not going to bother naming all these things right now. Now I'm going to take the note on the second string and move it down to the next lower note. Same thing on the third string. So all of those are different chords. Now I'm just going to keep going. Lower on the first string, lower on the second string, lower on the third, lower on the first, so you get the idea. You can go all the way down with those. We'll talk a little bit more about that in another video, but that's it for this one. See ya.